Thank you, Nora, and myself, semi-organized here. I spoke here on July 23rd. Seems like a long time ago, and I know some of you were here then, and I'm going to speak on the same subject because this is something that I feel really, really strongly about. I've been working on for some time. So, first of all, I want to mention that I am a mystic, and that I used to be an engineer, and so you'll find that much of my talk will be along what an engineer would present. And I want to emphasize that engineers are interested in how you can reach certain results, and they don't care very much about why things work. Scientists are interested in why, but engineers are interested in how do I make that happen. So a mystic is a person who seeks a direct connection with spirit. So by meditating, paying attention to what's happening around me, and using intuition, I'm working on my mission. My mission is to create change on this planet through my own consciousness for the greater good of all. I started focusing on the Golden Age in about a year ago, a little over a year ago in November. And when I spoke here at Unity, I'd been working on that for some time, so I had some information. And now today I'm going to add some additional information. So what is the Golden Age? Well, the Golden Age is predicted to be a time when we'll be healthier, when we will live longer, a time of peace, a time of prosperity, and a time of oneness. So how are we going to enter this Golden Age? Well, my theory is one way to enter the Golden Age is to raise the vibration of our physical body. That's my best guess. Now, text of my talks are posted on my Serendipity website, so you can go there and read what I intended to say when I gave a talk, because there's always things that happen during that talk that come up. You know, when we focus on something, we become more aware of it. So my example is that at one time we were going to buy a Ford pickup truck, a used Ford pickup truck, and of a certain age. And so I got to where I could spot a Ford pickup truck in a used car lot while I was driving 60 miles an hour down the freeway. I look over there and say, oh, there's one there. And it seemed like everybody had one, because that's what you're focusing on, that's what you're aware of, and that's what comes into your life. So, since I spoke on the Golden Age back in July, is there anyone here who has become more aware of the Golden Age since then? I see a few nods and a few yeses, and that's pretty good, because that's the first step, is to become aware of the possibility of a Golden Age. What happens in our lives is not random. So it's important to pay attention for clues as to what is going on around us and what's happening in our lives. So part two, that's what part one was in July. Part two is what has happened since that time and what others have been noticing and telling me about. Well, to get to part two, let's review part one. So part one is that at this time, our bodies are changing from a carbon-based structure to a crystalline structure. Now, this is something that's just happening to us. It's like getting on an airplane. When you get on an airplane to fly to New York, it doesn't matter whether you sleep or you're in the restroom or whether you're reading or watching a movie. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you're going to end up in New York City. And that's the way it is with what's happening with our bodies and changing. There's nothing that we have to do. We signed up to be here during this time. It's not a random thing that you signed up to be here. It's not a random thing that you came to church today. So there is something, however, that we can do to help with this change. And that's to be happy. Now, that sounds kind of easy, and it sounds kind of lighthearted, and it sounds sort of easy. But it isn't necessarily easy in life. And I'm talking about happiness being a spiritual practice. not just being happy, but thinking of it as part of your spiritual practice. And so when you're going through life and making choices, one of the things you can do, I did this not too long ago, I was thinking, boy, I really need to mow the lawn, or I could take a nap. And if I don't have time to take a nap when I'm retired, when am I going to have time? So I took a nap, and that made me happy. Okay. Other times, maybe mowing the lawn would have made me happy. That's okay. It isn't about what you're doing, it's about how you're feeling about it, about encouraging that feeling of happiness. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The second word that I want to introduce you to is inside. Okay, everything we have, everything we need, we have inside. And I like to call it our spiritual, our soul essence. That is, that we were spun off from the divine eons ago as sparks from the divine. And we have that spark within us. And that is what will be here long after everything else is gone. This is the spark that we have. And it's important to remember that we have that inside. So when we're looking for things out here, and when things aren't going well out here, it's good to remember that really we already have this. If you're looking for peace, you're looking for joy, you're looking for contentment, you're looking for all of these sort of things, inspiration, all of these things we have as part of who we are. The third word I want to mention, and I mentioned this before, was to connect. We need to remember to connect. And I drive an electric car, I drive a Leaf, and so that's in my consciousness. And there are three ways that you can charge a Leaf. You can plug it into a 120 volt outlet. And should you do that, and you're going to take a trip, let's say to Portland, which is a long ways in an electric car, it would take you about 2 days of charging, just to charge the battery. I'm not talking about driving, I'm talking about just to charge the battery. So that's not going to be very, very, very efficient. But if you use a 240 volt charger, which there are a number of them now, you can do that same amount in about 8 to 10 hours. Now, it's still a really long time, but you can see what a huge difference that is. However, the state of Washington has installed these fast chargers at certain places along I-5, and they run at about 400 plus volts DC, and you can charge in about, the charging time it would take is about 2 hours total to get from here to Portland. Now, still, that's a lot for those of us that are used to driving gasoline cars and diesel cars. But look at the difference. Look at the difference between 2 days and 2 hours. And so when we connect to spirit, when we connect, there are, I believe, 3 different ways we can connect. We can connect with the connection we came with. We're all connected to spirit. We can also connect at a second level, a higher level. And this is through examples of avatars, of Jesus, of Buddha, of any elevated soul that you can think of. You can use that. And Myrtle Fillmore, one of the founders of Unity, used that to heal herself. She sat down and she had a chair and she had Jesus, visualized Jesus sitting in that chair. She connected up to spirit through Jesus. So we have that at a second level. However, with the change that's happened in our world, we now can connect up at a third level, at a higher energy level. And last time I was here, I used a Van de Graaff generator to light this light bulb. And those of you that are here may remember that the electricity passed through the air and through the glass and lit up the light bulb, only momentarily, but it shows what happens when you have a lot more power. And we have a lot more power available to us now to help us in this change that's happening. So that was just a review of what we talked about before. So now let's talk about part 2. What can we add to this? We have happy, we have what?
Inside.
And we have?
Connect.
Okay. So let's add a third or fourth word. Aware. Aware, that sounds like a good word. Aware. So what do I mean by aware? Well, once we become aware of something, in fact, there's an old saying that a lot of us are familiar with, and that is, seeing is believing. But there's another way of looking at that believing is seeing. But when you believe that something is possible, eventually you'll be able to see it happening. So, have you ever had a premonition of something happening, something coming, and then having it come true? How many people here have had premonitions? So, well over half have had a premonition. And when you're a mystic, that's one of the things I work on, is working on improving having premonitions and knowing what's happening. And as a good engineer, I believe that when you believe in something and when you work at it, it will happen more often. Well, can you believe that a golden age is a possibility?
Absolutely, it is a fact.
Okay, so if we can believe it's a possibility, I want to tell you about one source I trust that I got some information from recently, and that is we are already in the golden age. It's already here, so why aren't we more aware of it? Well, partly we have to start with belief. If we believe it's a possibility and we believe it could be here, then we can become more aware of it. Now, the same source said, right now the golden age might seem a little tarnished. And boy, did that ever hit home. But that's part of the premonition, the predictions, is that we would go through a time of chaos before the golden age. So perhaps that's just part of the process that we're going through. So how can we become more aware of the golden age? Well, it's the same thing that I talked about in July, and that's by raising our vibrations, by raising the vibration actually of our physical body. And a good estimate for when are we really going to become more aware, more of us more aware of the golden age, and that time frame is close to 2 years, roughly. So if things are looking a little tarnished right now, if they're looking a little bit on the dark side for some things, be aware that things are like a pendulum. The further they go towards the dark side, when that pendulum is released, the faster and the further it's going to swing towards the light. And so we may find that there's a fairly rapid movement of awareness of the golden age. What I'd like to do is share with you some some visions that I've had, and let's see, Nora was just mentioning she hates technology. Well, this morning at our house the power went out.
Oh, geez.
And I'm fumbling around in the dark, and I'm thinking, well, thank goodness I use low tech. Because I did find out that it was really only around our house and not here in Bremerton. But I'm using, most of my technology uses no electricity. So this is one of the visions I've had, and it's simply a sailboat where the sail is the mind and the body is the boat. And you don't have to see this very well to get a feel for what I'm talking about. And that is that if we're going to move into the golden age, we need to remember to keep our mind and body together. What happens to the sailboat if the sail comes loose? No matter how hard the wind blows, the boat's not going to move very much at all. And that's the same thing that my vision tells me, is to keep my mind and body together, to not go soaring off into astral travel or all of these sort of things, but instead to remember that I'm working on raising the vibration of that which is the densest. The densest thing that we have is the body, in terms of frequency, in terms of light. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're meditating. Keep in mind that it's not just about soaring to heights, but it's about raising the vibration of your body. And one of the ways to raise the vibration of your body is to be, first word, happy. Be happy, right. So doesn't that doesn't that happiness, doesn't it make you feel like you're vibrating at a higher frequency? And that's because you are. So the next vision I'd like to share with you is a banana. And I love simple, and so my visions usually are simple. Simple to remember, simple to understand, simple to teach. So the banana, most of us know, the part inside is really the really important part. The outside peel is what protects the inside. And this is a good thing to remember. One of the challenges in our life is a lot of what we deal with has to do with the peel. And what we take with us, what counts, is the soul. So, very good visual for what's happening in life, what's happening around you, is to keep in mind that a lot of times what's happening and what we're talking about is really the peel, which really isn't as important as the soul. So here's a vision I had of my spiritual path, and maybe some of you can relate to this. And what it is this is my spiritual path here, okay? And these are distractions. These are what's happening in Washington, D.C. This is what's happening in the world. This is what's happening around and sometimes very close. And that's a distraction. And it's very important in our lives to recognize what is our path, what is for us to do, and what is a distraction. And along my spiritual path, there's some purple. And this purple, for me, is the blue, the violet flame of Saint Germain. Or in French, I guess it'd be Saint Germain. And this is a presence, this is a power that we can call into our lives at this particular time. And that violet flame tends to move us through fear. And a lot of what we have in the way of distraction around us is a lot of this out here is fear. So I think this is a really important, at least for me, that's one of the challenges of a mystic. One of the challenges of a mystic is, did I just get that for myself, or is that something that I'm supposed to share with other people? Is that meaningful only for me? Is that meaningful only for a few? Or is that meaningful for a lot of people? And that becomes quite a challenge. And that's one of the ways I can find out is when I share it with people and they come up later and say, you know, or I see them later and they say, you know, that vision was really powerful for me. Then I know, oh yeah, that was one I needed to share. So what about the boat? Well, when we think of, let's say we're reaching for something, I have kind of a star here, but it could be an apple, it could be anything that's up above us. And we're standing in a boat. There's two ways that we can get higher to get to that apple, right? One is we can stretch, okay? And that's what we'll be doing during our workshop this afternoon. We'll be stretching, we'll be finding a way to move our vibration higher, to vibrate at a higher level, okay? The other way that we can do it is we can raise the level of the lake. And that is very powerful because I've done a number of workshops, and today, some of you that were here for the workshop in July will be here for the workshop afterwards. But what about those that are here for the first time or missed last time or whatever, etc.? It's really hard for me as an engineer because, you know, I'm really focused on, well, how am I going to help you when, you know, you've got to rush off this time and you were here last time? How are we going to make that progression? And the answer is we're going to raise the lake. Because everyone who was there last time, everyone who is here this time, everyone who is raising their vibration by being happier is raising the level of the lake. And so it doesn't matter whether the same people are here as last time, etc., etc. What matters is that we do what is our spiritual path. So it may be the most important thing in the world for you not to be here at the workshop after the class. That's really hard for an engineer to understand. But it is absolutely true. The best thing that you can do is follow your own spiritual path. Sometimes our paths cross, sometimes they're together, and sometimes they're apart. And that's the way life is. I want to mention also that in our Unity Church and Unity of North Kitsap, we did the prosperity program by Mary Morrissey, thanks to Reverend Karen, who will be here next week, and her husband Dave. And I want to mention a couple things from the prosperity program that I think fit in well. First of all, Mary Morrissey says, our dream is at a higher vibration. We cannot reach it by just remaining as we are. So it's important, if we're going to reach a dream, if we're going to move ahead, that we move to a higher vibration. And another thing that Mary teaches is we don't know how. We don't need to know how. The divine knows how. Our part is to trust. And the last part of it is another word. Commit. Commit. What is taught in the Course is we need to commit to our dream. And when we commit to our dream, then the universe helps us out, gets behind us. So, more than committing to a dream, which is the golden age, I would say, maybe first of all, we need to commit to our spiritual path. Follow our own spiritual path. And we do that by paying attention to what goes on around us. So one of the things that I'd like to add for today is we want to not be distracted by the world, as my vision was, do what is ours to do. And I've had a number of experiences recently that have reinforced my belief that we are entering the golden age and that we can do this. And so, Mark, if you would, can you show that picture of the tree? There it is, like magic. So, it's important to pay attention to what is happening in your life. And I was on a retreat in Oregon, and I looked over at these evergreens, and I saw this absolutely golden tree, and the light was on this tree. This picture I took several days later, so it isn't the same picture that I saw, it's the same circumstances, but the light was so shining on this tree that I really got the message. That's what we are to do. We are to become those who are in the golden age, who are aware of the golden age, who are bringing through the golden age, okay? Surrounded by evergreens. Okay, so that's one of the things I'd really like to emphasize is pay attention to what's happening in your life, because I believe that Spirit is talking to us all the time. We're just not very good listeners. I had another vision on that same trip, which was very, very powerful. I was driving down the road, and I came around a corner, and all of a sudden, there were all of these golden leaves. I mean, it was like the whole place was totally golden. The sun was shining on it. There was this blue sky, and I knew in that moment that this was really important for me. It really struck me. It was almost overwhelming. I was really taken by it. Since that time, I now realize that that is the message for me about the golden age. I was what? Following the road. What did I do to get into that experience? Did I create the trees? Did I change the leaves yellow? Did I bring out the sunshine? Did I make the sky blue? I didn't do anything but be following the road and being at the right place at the right time. And that, to me, is a vision of where we are right now. We need to follow our path into the golden age, which is already there. It's already prepared for us. It's a matter of following our road, our path, to that exact right place. So I want to share a story with you. We were in Bolivia, and 4 of us, we were with a group. Carol and myself and 2 other people were the 4 people, and we were with this group, and I can't remember how many of us were there, 20, whatever, so our group. And I had arranged that we would take off for 3 days on our own. And 4 of us had signed up for that. We're going to go off and we're going to take 3 days on our own. And as we got closer to this time, I started getting worried because I realized I had no clue where we were going to go, what we were going to do. And I had these 3 other people that I felt responsible for. And one of the people going with us was our friend Greg. And I started sharing with Greg, I said, I'm getting really kind of concerned here because we're only a couple days away here, and I have no clue what we're going to do. Here we are, I've never been in Bolivia before, no arrangements, etc., etc. And Greg was very calm. And I said, Greg, how can you be so calm? And he looks at me and says, Gale, you've got a good track record. And that was one of the most affirming things I've ever heard. But I still was nervous, and I was still worried. And I woke up one morning, and it was about 2 days away, and I was meditating, and I was doing what I have done a number of times in my life. I said, I need some help here. And all of a sudden, I realized that I hadn't said yes. We were going to do this thing, we got people, we were, et cetera, but I hadn't really committed. I hadn't really said yes. So I started saying yes, 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 yes. I will do this. I'll do whatever I need to do. Yes, I'm committed. I will do this. We were in a hotel in La Paz, in Bolivia, and I went down to the lobby, and I looked at the guy behind the desk, and I said, do you have a travel agent that you use? He says, oh yeah, we use Alex. And I said, great. He says, I'll call him up. And I said, no, is he close? He says, yeah, and I said, can I walk there from here? He said, yes. So I said, okay, give me directions. And call him up, tell him, make sure he's there. And he says, oh, yep, Alex is there, and he'll be available, and fine. Well, Carol came downstairs, and I said, Carol, we've got to go see this travel agent. She said, okay. And so here we are, following these directions, going under this roadway and up the street, and we get to this little kind of hole-in-the-wall place. There's a bunch of businesses, and we walk in, and nothing looks familiar. I mean, I'm thinking, oh, boy, this is... And then I hear this voice behind me that says, oh, you must be the man from the hotel. And I heard that voice, and I said, that's it. So we sat down with Alex, and I said, well, explained that we wanted to go off and meditate someplace, and it had to be, and I told him that's what we wanted to do. And he said, oh, yeah, and we go down to the salt flats. In Bolivia is the largest salt flats in the world. And so we'll go down there, and so Alex, so it's kind of funny because I'm sitting there trying to tune into my intuition. Is this right? Should we do this? What should we arrange? Carol's using her pendulum, but she's got it down below the edge of the table, so it doesn't look too weird. And so Alex figures out what we can do, and I said, oh yeah, and we want to stay in the Salt Hotel. Oh yeah, we can do that. So he arranged the transportation and everything. There's 4 of us. I said, how much will that cost? He said, well, that'll be $100 a person. And I said, okay, what do we need to put down? He said, well, pay for 1 person, that'll do it. So I pulled out a $100 bill and gave it to him, and actually I think it was $250s, but it was $100. And for me, that's a commitment. And then we made it back to the hotel and got on our bus with our tour group. They were all on the bus, and they loaded our bags on, and then we got on the bus. 45 minutes. 45 minutes from when we had been in the hotel to when we were back on the bus. And we had arranged where we were going, what we were doing, put down the money, everything was in place. I looked over at Carol and I said, "You're in shock." She said, "Yes." So I want to not just tell you about the word commit, but I want to make sure that you don't commit like I do. Like, well, yeah, okay, if things work out and, we find a place and, whatever, it's okay. No, I want you to be like I was when I passed across that $100 to Alex and said, "Yep, this is it." And by the way, it was an amazing, incredible experience that is a whole story in itself. But it wouldn't have happened, I don't believe, had I not made the commitment. So, in review, the first word is
Happy.
happy. As a spiritual practice. And as I like to say, and what would be the downside? Okay. Secondly, inside. Everything we have that we need is inside. Third, connect. And we'll work on that. If you can work on that on your own, is recognizing that there are different levels that you can connect to Spirit. The fourth word is aware. To pay attention to what's happening around us. Because I really believe that Spirit's talking to us all the time. We just need to filter it out from all of the other things that are going on. And the last thing is commit. Very good. So today's workshop, what we're going to do is very similar to what we did last July, except we're going to move to a higher level. So are there any questions? One thing I like, usually if it's simple enough, you don't get a lot of questions. Okay. Not a lot of esoteric thought here, but don't discount the strength.
The digits.
The digits. You're wondering about the digits. I am too. When I came in this morning, I just had a feeling like there was something missing, something that I needed to do that was different. And I finally quieted my mind enough to figure out what it was, to hear what it was. So on Tuesday at 7 o'clock at the church in Suquamish, 7 in the evening, I'll be playing different didgeridoos. These are a couple that I'll be playing. These are indeed didgeridoos. They're called box didges. And there are baffles in here, so they play like they're 7 times longer than the length that they are. What these do, now I'm not a musician, and I don't play the didgeridoo in a classical way. I play the didgeridoo for the effect. I play it without rhythm. And I play it for the effect that it has on you and me in the moment. And these didges tend to open the heart, the sound of these didges. Now, Heart Math, a group that's in California, has shown in scientific ways that the heart is our connection to the divine, our connection to Spirit. And one of the sayings that I love is, the purpose of the heart is to catch the vision. The purpose of the mind is to bring the vision into reality. So opening our heart does a number of things for us. And I'm going to play these, and I'm going to do this first, and then I will play the glass didgeridoo. Now, a glass didgeridoo, this one tends to, I believe, help smooth our transition into the future. And so that's one of the things that my talk is about, is moving into the future. And so this will give you a preview of what I'll be doing on Tuesday. But more than that, I hope this will help you on your journey. So if you feel uncomfortable, you can have me, tell me to back off. One of the things that I can do with the square didgeridoo is I can get close so that our auras can interact. And this way, if I hold the intention of the highest good, then that will interact with your aura and we'll have a result. Deep breath in through the nose, blow out through the mouth. Any energy is no longer needed. Feelings are the language of the soul. Feelings are the language of the soul. Feelings are the language of the soul. Pay attention to how you're feeling.